How you going, guys? Dean from Adeptus Victorium here, and today I'm going to show you how to install, set up and play Warhammer 40,000 9th edition on Tabletop Simulator. While COVID-19 is running rampant and half of the world is in lockdown, there is no better time than to play Warhammer 40k on Tabletop Simulator, a brilliant program that allows you to play essentially realistic Warhammer 40k on the PC with your friends remotely from anywhere in the world. Alright, the first thing that you're going to need to do in order to play Tabletop Simulator is download Tabletop Simulator. So pretty simple, go to Steam, go to the store and search for Tabletop Simulator. It's a $28 game, I believe it was, and you just click download on here. I've already done it obviously, so it's not going to show up in mine, but yeah, that's where you go to get the game. And basically it's just similar to Battlescribe in the way that it's all user-generated content. So once you've downloaded the game, the next part, and this is the part that a lot of people get stuck with, is downloading the content. So I'll show you how to do that now. All you need to do is go to Discord, and there's a channel that you can join called Beginner Tabletop Simulator Warhammer 40k. This is an amazing resource. It has lots and lots of information, as you can see in the conversations down the side here. There's plenty of information there for beginners. And there's also another channel that's worth joining, which is called Tabletop Simulator, or TTS, Warhammer 40k, which again has tons and tons of really useful information. This is a great place to go to pick up games, find online tournaments and that sort of thing. But both of them have this thing called the Battleforged Workshop mod compilation. You'll find that in both. I'll put a link in the description of this video as well. But basically you want to click on that and download that file. Once you download that file, it comes with the instructions already in it and how to install Battleforge down the bottom here. But more or less all you have to do is unzip it and then save all of the files that are in that folder into the Tabletop Simulator file on your PC. So when you install Tabletop Simulator, you'll save that file to a location on your PC, and then you basically just take all of these files and save them into the same folder. And that way when you open Tabletop Simulator, it will draw all of that information out. Alright, so now that you've got Tabletop Simulator downloaded, and you've downloaded the Battleforged mod compilation pack, you're good to go. So we'll go straight into play now, and it'll launch Tabletop Simulator on your PC. Alright, so now that we've got Tabletop Simulator up and running, you've basically got a few different ways that you can set up a game and engage with Warhammer 40k on the simulator. So the first thing you want to do is go into Create. And let's just teach you the basics by going to a single player game. So when you do this, you create a game instance where you can basically do whatever you want. So you'll notice that there's these four colors here. There's the Classic, the DLC, the Workshop, and the Save and Load. Classic is essentially classic games that come free with Tabletop Simulator. DLC is downloadable content, so games that are endorsed and cost money to play. Then you've got the Workshop, which is a place that you can go to download community-generated content. And then Save and Load, which is where you go to basically save any games that you've got playing at the moment, or load any games that you've been playing so far. And everything that you save from that the Battleforged compilation file is already saved into this folder. So basically, to get started, let's open that, and this is what you should be met with. This is all of the stuff from that Battleforged compilation download, and basically it's just everything you'd need to play a game of 40k. So if you want to play Imperium, you go there, and then it shows you all of the different Imperial factions, and then you might go, you know what, I want to play Space Marines, and then it comes up with all of the different Space Marine options, and these are all user-generated content. And then basically you just pick one of your whichever army it is that you want to play, and you open it up, and as you can see, it'll load all of the models that are available to that faction. And then basically all of the controls, I'll let you guys figure that out yourself, but it's pretty much WASD for controlling, and then your mouse clicks to pivot, etc., and then left click to pick things up. But yeah, so as you can see, it's got pretty much every option you could imagine, even for little things like the Librarian. It's got every different ranged weapon and combat weapon It's all in there. And then basically the process here is, this is what you would use when building your army. So you write your army list using Battlescribe, or pen and paper if you want, or fucking Excel, I don't care. It's entirely up to you. And then basically you go in here and you grab all of the models you'd need to run that army. So yeah, basically that's all you need to do. The best way to do that, I find, is to basically clear an area of the board here. So say you don't have any land raiders in your list, then you just want to start by highlighting all the land raiders and deleting them just by hitting delete. That'll delete all the land raiders. And then you go, okay, my list contains 1 librarian, 1 chaplain. It's got, say a Vanguard veteran squad of 10 guys. And you just go through and pull all the stuff that you want for your army. You can do things like you can rename them. So say you want 2 squads, you can copy and paste. You can go copy, paste. Now you got 2 squads, and then you can rename them by right-clicking on them, and all of their information comes down here. So if you scroll down a little bit further, you can go, this squad, we want to rename them. Some of them are really good in the way that they've got all your stats in there. You just have to be careful because some of them have 7th edition stats in there, so just be careful that they're accurate and don't rely on them heavily. Remember, it is user-generated content. But you might call this, you might highlight these 10 guys and rename them Vanguard 1. And now that renames them all Vanguard 1. And that way during games you can separate the squads. There's a lot of really advanced stuff you can do with this game, like putting coloured bases on each guy and all sorts of crazy stuff. But for now, let's just focus on the basics. So you get your Vanguard squad, and obviously, like if you've got all of them with Thunderhammers, you just copy and paste the shit out of that model. If you got like 5 with Thunderhammers and the rest of them just have bolt pistol chainswords, you copy this one a bunch of times, and these ones a bunch of times just to get your squads. Obviously, a Salamander's army with a couple of Vanguard squads is probably very unlikely, but the options are there. And then basically, once you've copied everything that you want, and you've got your little army here, you just highlight every model in it. And if highlighting is difficult, you can also just hold Control and click, and that'll highlight just the models that you've clicked on. But yeah, basically you highlight your army, you right-click on it, and then you go Save Object. And then you just save it as Salamander's example, and you save. And then basically what happens once you've gone through and you've written your army on a Battlescribe or whatever, you've come in here, you've collected all the models required, you can then start a game. Also worth noting that there are some instances where it might not have the exact models that you need. So what most people do to counter this is, like, for example, they might not have a Primaris Lieutenant in here, but if you want one, you just take a similar enough model like this bloke, be like, oh yeah, he looks kind of like a Primaris Lieutenant, and then you just rename him Primaris Lieutenant or whatever. And then he's renamed, and that way during the game your opponent can hover over any model and see exactly what it is. But yeah, so you go through, you build your list, you save it as an object, and now you get to start playing a multiplayer game. There's a few other tricks that you can do here. So you can save this game. So if you go save and load and then save game, it'll then give you an opportunity to save this game. And when it's talking about game, it's talking about this whole instance. So it'll save the table, it'll save every aspect of what models are where. It's really good if you're playing a multiplayer game because you can save the game and then come back to it tomorrow. But yeah, that'll save everything there. So what I've done, and I highly recommend doing this, is I've saved a game, which you can, to load a game, you literally go in here and anything you've saved is here. So I've created a folder called Cindy's Lists, and I've created a game that I call the Army Repository. And this is just a single player game that only I have access to. And it's literally just a board, which will take a second to load, where as I come up with different ideas for army lists, I just copy them and paste them in here. So like I've got this list where it's got
the Land Raiders, the Predators, the Vindicators, and some Berserkers and some Terminators, just like a fun, silly list. Another silly list with 3 Lord of Skulls, Terminator. There's a unit of Terminators there as well. I just moved them over here. Things like this Nurgle list, which is just all Nurglings, Plague Drones, Beasts of Nurgle. This is what I'm talking about with the coloured rings, which I might do a second video if there's interest, and I'll show you guys how to do some of that sort of stuff. There's tons of things you can do. You can make custom PDFs where you can literally upload a codex into the game. Make notes. There's tons of cool shit you can do. And then I've like copied and pasted Tau units in here, so I've got my Tau army. Here's an example of a model they don't have, is they don't have an ethereal, so I've just taken a Fireblade and just called him my ethereal. Yeah, this is just a really clean, easy way to you know, when somebody's like, oh, let's have a game, you'd be like, okay, cool, and then you come over here and look at what armies you have. But I'll use this as an example to show you, just say this was a game I was playing with a friend and I wanted to load that Salamander's army that we just made. All you do is go into Objects, because we saved the object, and then go to Save Objects. And this is all the objects that I've currently saved. So you can see there's the Salamander's example here. You just click on that, and now it drops that Salamander's list in. So that's a real simple way of just essentially spawning an army that you've pre-made and saved to your objects. So saved objects, you can see, you know, I've got a list I call the Monster Mash, which is just that. So you just click that one thing and you save your list and you go, alright, cool, I've got my 3 Helldrakes, I've got my 3 Defilers, I've got my 3 Forge Fiends. Lord Discordant was one where I couldn't find a model, so I've just got a Mauler Fiend and made him small. So he's my stand-in, because you can change the size and scale of models and the colours and all kinds of crazy shit. But yeah, so that's more or less how you do it. So just a quick recap on that. So save and load, and you've got all of your factions. You go into any old faction, you delete out what you don't want, and create a little area where you copy and paste what you do want. So for the World Eaters fans out there, let's have a quick swizz at that. So you go in here and you go World Eaters, Chaos Space Marines, World Eaters. And this is my favourite table, not only because it's full of World Eaters, but it's got a few really cool features. So I recommend taking this table, highlighting everything and deleting it all off the table, and then saving this as your army repository, because what that allows you to do is use these drawers, which you just click on the button and the drawer opens, and then basically you can go, okay, I want to make a list with this guy, and this guy, and this guy, and then what you can do if you don't want to look at it is you can close the drawer, and then when you open it, the guys are still there. And it also is just a nice big area to work with when you're trying to figure out what your lists are. So yeah, that's a piece of advice from me. But yeah, so you go in, you pick your faction, you pick your minis, you copy paste them, you delete a section of the table so that you've got some room to play with, you chuck them in there, and then you're good to go. So now here you're asking, what if you want to play a multiplayer game? So let's just go back to the main menu, which gets us out of the games that we're playing. And you can either join a game, and by doing so you just click on this, and this is all the active games. And you can basically, if it's got a lock on it, that means it's private. You can't join it without a password. But if it doesn't, it means you can join in. But they're not all 40k games, as you can see. It's like Texas Hold'em, you know, all kinds of different games in there. But if your mates have created a game that they want to let you join, they can create a game, make it locked, so need a password, and then you can come in here, you can click on the game and you can join it. And that way you can have 2 people playing, but you can have like up to as many spectators as you want, who you're essentially just having like a games night. So that's how you join an existing game. But to create a new game, you literally just hover over create a multiplayer game. You set a server name, so before in that join list, that's your server name. So if you're creating a game and you want to go multiplayer, and you want to call it whatever, call it Advic, and then Now, when your mates are coming on, you just send them a message being like, hey guys, join the Advic game. And then you set a password to it as well. And in order to set a password, you have to go public, but then set a password. You can alternatively make it friends, so only people who are your friends on Steam can join. And you can also make it invite, so that only people that you directly invite to the game can join. So even if they're your friends, they can't join unless they get an invitation from you. So it all depends on how you want to coordinate your games night. If you want to make it access to your friends only, and then send it out and say, alright, anybody who wants to join, jump on whenever you want, here's the password, you can do that. If you want to make it so that you inviting one person and you guys play a little private game, you can do that. Or if you want to make it public and send a message out to Facebook saying, hey guys, I'm having a game, anybody who wants to join in and spectate can. It doesn't matter, they don't have to be your friends, they can all anybody can join in. Anyway, enough of that. So you pick your name, you pick your type, you put your password in, you pick how many players you want it to allow, and you create the server. And now creating a server is just like creating a single player game. The only difference is that multiple people can enjoy. So from here, you can go to your save and load, and you can load any of the army list games, or you can go into the workshop. Now all of these are the 9th edition missions that I've downloaded from the workshop. So we'll use one of those, but to show you how the workshop works is essentially you click on the workshop and then you can browse. And your browsing will bring up the Steam community page, and then in here you can search for whatever you want and download custom models. There's all kinds of different stuff you can find in here. It's insane the amount of work that people have put in to create user-generated content. It's insane. But for our purposes, I'm just going to go back to return to the game. For our purposes, we're just going to pick one of these 9th edition missions. So let's just pick this one, and then you load it, and you're into a game. You choose your seat, red or blue, and once both of those seats have been taken, you can make it so that everybody else is a spectator, and then the spectators you can set permissions. So you can say they can't pick up models, they can't do anything, but they can help you measure things, and they can help you with whatever. There's tons of customization there. Let's just say we pick red player, and then basically from here you'll see up the top it's got your mission. So each one of those different files, each one of the different games in here is a different 9th edition mission, and they've all got different terrain setups as well, so I'll show you a few of those. But yeah, it's got your mission, it's got your scorecard, it's got your table, it's got your terrain, it's got everything that you need except for your army. So basically what you do then is you go, okay, I'm in the game, I'm going to load my army, I'm going to load my, say my Monster Mash list, chuck it there, and then you're ready to go. And then what you do is up the top here you've got an invite friends button, so I could click on it, I could invite one of my mates. Stewie's playing Tabletop Simulator, I could invite him. And when he gets added, his name will show up here, and then he can summon in his army over here just by going saved objects and bring it in. So he might bring in his Tau army, plop it down there. So there you go, okay, Tau versus World Eaters. There's a bunch of cool features here that I'll show you because they're crucial to being able to play this game functional. The first is up here, you click your name there, and then Stewie would click on player 2 and that puts his name there. Then you pick which type of mission pack you want to do. Eternal War are the rulebook missions, and then Grand Tournament 2020 are the GT missions. And then basically down here you've got all your secondaries. So you scroll through them and pick your 3 secondaries. As you scroll over them, it shows you what the secondary is, which makes it a bit easier for you to pick. So you might read that and be like, nah, fuck that, too hard. Next one, grind them down, nah, fuck that, too hard. And then you pick them. And then basically you start the game. So it's got all your primaries at the top here, and as we know you can only score primaries from Battle Round 2, and then basically you just go, do I hold 1? Yes. Do I hold 2? Yes. Do I hold more? No. And then in the next player's turn you might go, okay, he holds 1, he also holds 2, but he holds 3, so he actually holds more. and you just go through and you put in your scores like that, and then it calculates it all down the bottom. You might be wondering why I have 10 points there, but it's saying 20, and why he has 15 and it's saying 25, and that's because it factors in the 10 points you get for having a fully painted army. Yeah, so that's nice and fun. It's got a battle round counter, so you can tick that up as you want. I don't really see a massive amount of use of this, because if you're using the scorecard, you'll know what battle round it is, because you'll be filling in the scores as you go. However, the command point counters are very helpful. So you tick that one all the way up to 12 at the start. I don't know why it's not defaulted to start on 12, but that's nitpicking at best. And then basically, yeah, as you use them, you tick them down. As your command phase comes and you get an extra, you tick it up. Really useful feature there. Really useful features up the top here. But the best feature, and the thing that makes this game actually a lot faster than a proper game of 40k, is this dice tray. It's essentially like the best dice rolling app ever built into the table. So basically you got all your numbers of dice along here. So just say you got 50 attacks. You just go bang, bang, that's 50 dice. You know, if it's 55, you add another 5. Basically you just click these buttons to add the number of d6 that you need. Then you can select all dice and drop them in this box. And then basically it rolls them all out for you, and it even tells you the total number of dice you rolled, so you'll know if your opponent's rolling too many dice. And then there's a few features you can do here. So you can click on each one of these white buttons, and that selects the row. If you right click on it, it selects the row and anything below it. So just say you were hitting on, so you got nothing selected. Say you're hitting on 4s, but you get full rerolls because your Tau, this bloke over here, and he's just declared a Kion, so all these guys are hitting on 4s. This is a big broadside unit, hitting on 4s with rerolls, right? You just right click the 3, and then you just drag and drop those back in the box and roll them again. And then what you can do is to delete those 3s, you can either right click on it and then hit delete, or if you right click on this button, it deletes that. So the same functionality here is if you left click, it just deletes that row, in the same way that just left clicking just selects that row. But if you want to delete the row and anything less, like in the case of hitting on a 4+, you just right click on it and it'll delete them. And then let's just say you had some kind of ability that allowed you to have exploding 6s. You just click on the 6 and then just copy and paste. And then if you want to roll those, just drop it. So there's tons of functions you can do there with the dice roll. And then basically, so there are your hits. Then you're going to go, okay, cool, I'm going to select all, roll my wounds, winning a, let's say a 4, so delete all those. Then your opponent goes, cool, now I'm going to roll my saves. They pick it up, they roll their saves. They go, okay, I get a 3-up save, so that's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dead. So it's really fast. Like when you actually get into the swing of it, and you've got like a unit of 10 Khorne Berserkers going in with a gajillion attacks, it's so much faster. The other funky thing that you can do is you can highlight, just say you've got a Khorne Berserker, he's got 5 attacks, but one of them is a chainsword, so it has a different profile. If you right click on the dice and then go color tint, you can change the color of it. I always recommend going a light color, like a slight pinky red, because if you go too bright, it'll overpower it. And then you might go, okay, cool, and there's 5 Berserkers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you might go, yeah, but one of them is a sergeant, so he has... So yeah, one of the other funky things you can do is say you've got a Khorne Berserker, he's got 5 attacks, but one of them's a chain axe, or chain sword, sorry. You might go like that. So simply right clicking on the dice that you want to change, selecting color tint, and then making it a light color. If you make it too dark, like if you go, yeah, dark red for Khorne, it makes it a lot harder to see. But that being said, it doesn't really matter too much, because when you roll them, the dice, it doesn't matter what you can see, because it's going to show up in the right row. So you're going to know what that number is, even if you made it black. But yeah, so you might go, okay, cool, Berserkers, they have 5 attacks each on the charge. There's 5 in the squad, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But one of them's a sergeant, so you might go, okay, I'm going to take that dice, I'm going to duplicate it, and then I'm going to click on all those dice and change them to be blue, because they're the power fist. And now you know you have power fists, chain swords, chain axes, and then you can roll a lot. And then you can go, cool, hitting on 3s, so you delete those, and then the power fist will be hitting on 4s, so you just hover over them and hit delete. And then you go, cool, now rolling to wound. They'll be wounding on 3s, except for the power fist, which will be wounding on 2s, which is fine. And then your opponent goes, I'm going to roll my... you get the point. You've all played Warhammer before. So that's one of the sick features, is this dice rolling app. The other really good thing is that all of the terrain in these missions have all of the terrain rule keywords built into them. So you hover over it and you're like, it's an obstacle, but it says that it's a defense line, it's light cover, it's heavy cover, it's defensible, unstable, and difficult ground. So all of the terrain have that in it, so there's never a debate on, what are we calling this? Is that an obstacle or is that a wall? I don't know. Is this a ruin? What is it? Is it obscuring? We didn't discuss it at the start of the game. It's all built in, so there's no debate. You'll also notice these orange circles, they're your objective markers. So even though the objective markers are laid out in the mission, they're on the table already for you as well. You've also got your deployment zones, these white lines here. Everything's already pre-measured for you. It's so fucking easy. It's so amazing. Now let's talk a little bit about moving units, because that's the other thing that's obviously integral to any game of 40k. Don't know why there was a Howling Banshee there. So just when you're deploying, you're going to go, cool, I'm going to put my Helldrakes over here behind this nice big wall. And then you can obviously get down on the ground level from your opponent's eyes and see, can they see the Helldrake? They can see the top of that one, but hang on, it's obscuring, which means that it's got essentially infinite height. So no, can't see the Helldrakes. You can probably see that one's wings, so you might want to rotate. To rotate a model, you pick it up, and then you roll the scrolly wheel on your mouse, or Q and E also rotate a model. And there's an important distinction to be made between those two. So let's say you come over here and you want to deploy this unit of Space Marines, Chaos Space Marines. You bring them over to the table. You go, I'm going to deploy them on this objective here. If while they're highlighted you just press Q or E, it literally just rotates them all like they're dancing. Whereas if you pick them up and then roll the scroll wheel, it pivots the whole unit. So that's got a lot of important uses, especially if they're like arranged in a line like this. And you might go, okay, cool, that's my unit. And you might go, okay, I want to move them forward, but I want to rotate them a little bit. Like that. So that's movements of units, movements of these big guys. But the other amazing feature about this game, and this is probably one of the greatest features, is that if you click a model and then hold tab, when you move that model, it tells you how many inches they move. So say Helldrake's got like 20 inches move, I think. So you just go, yeah, cool, 20 inches, 19.9. It can be a little dicky in that it counts vertical distances sometimes when you don't want it to. So say, for example, you've got this Marine under here. Right. If you want to move him out, sometimes it'll okay, it's not doing it there. It's actually being quite cooperative right now. But yeah, sometimes it is a little dicky and it starts factoring in vertical movement when you don't want it to, etc. So I find a really useful trick is along the side here, you'll notice all the tools. Most of these you'll never need to use, you mainly just need to grab, because that allows you to pick up models and move them, and it allows you to roll dice. And if you're using, like clicking and then holding tab to measure its movement, you really don't need much more. However, one of the other features is this one here, the line tool, and basically you've got options there. You set the units, whether or not it's a ruler or whether it hovers, and all kinds of features there. But basically that one allows you to measure anywhere to anywhere. So you might be like, okay, how far is that Helldrake from you? Oh, he's 9.5 inches. Actually, I'll move him back a little bit. I don't want him that close. that sort of thing. So the line tool is really good. The draw tool is really good, especially for these missions, because there's missions like this where you've got, let's say you're choosing for your secondary, you're choosing raise the banners higher. So basically you need to mark which banners you've raised throughout the game. So you could like note it down on a piece of paper or something like that, or you can just go draw tool and then you just draw a nice big tick. And that's how you know. Alright, I've raised that one. Alternatively, you can go text. You can click on it and type raised. That's the text tool on the left there. So you can. There's so many different things you can do. It's amazing. Yeah, so that more or less covers the basics of how to play 40k on it. So yeah, to recap, the dice tool is awesome. The missions up here, the scorecards up here. You've got different features down the side here. You'll have a play with those, and you might find some of them more useful than others. Like combining units, that can be handy. Like, just say you want to go, okay, I don't want to make any mistakes and move my Dark Apostle away from these boys. So what you might do is you might just combine the Dark Apostle and the boys. And if you do that, it essentially combines them all to be one model, and then you pick it up and move it. I don't advise doing that because then it's a bit dicky if you want to remove a casualty. You'd have to then uncombine, which is super pain in the ass. But it can be done. The other thing is, I recommend when you're taking casualties in this game, hover over the model that died and press F. And all that does is flip him upside down. And the reason that I like doing that is because then at the end of the turn you know how many died that turn for morale purposes. And then once you've done your morale phase, you then just hover over them and hit delete. And that deletes the model out of the unit. It can be a bit dicky if you know you're about to cop shooting attacks into that unit and then a charge, because you don't want the charging models on top of your flipped models, because then it's a pain in the ass. It does work though, you can just place him on top. It's not an issue. But yeah, that's just one little trick, flipping models upside down. What other tricks are there? So you've got your games along the top here, that do the banner along the top. So games, that's literally the same screen that you see when you first start a game. So basically your choice of what game you want to play. Objects, that allows you to... Oh, hang on, I'll get rid of that, games. Objects, that allows you to summon things in. So your saved objects are all the things that you've saved, obviously. Backgrounds, there's an array of built-in backgrounds here. You can do custom ones, which is what they've done here. As you can see, there's the Tabletop Professional is their background, which personally I think is a sick background. You don't need to change that. But yeah, so that's your backgrounds. Tables, again, this is if you would pick up a game and you were going to just give somebody a small game, you might choose one of these tables instead. And then the interesting one is components. Now I get a lot of use out of components. So in here there's all kinds of different stuff, from dice to get cards and stuff. It's designed to be obviously for any tabletop game. The two main ones that you're going to want to use are tools and custom. So custom is essentially allowing you to create custom objects. So you might create a custom figurine, which you can just spawn onto the table. And then when you spawn it, it allows you to add a URL for an image to the front and the back. So you can just go into your files, you go into your documents, you might pick whatever file you've got in there. You can say literally anything. And then when you do that, that image will appear on that card. So people use this to create custom psychic power declaration cards. So you go, oh cool, I'll put warp time on this unit, and you put the token with it. You might use it instead of writing raised, or instead of putting a tick, you might create yourself some actual banners and be like, yep, cool, raise that banner, I'll put a banner up here to illustrate the fact that that banner has been raised. There's tons of cool shit you can do with that, which just makes communication a lot easier, because that's one of the slight deficits of this compared to playing in person, is communication can be a little bit more difficult. So yeah, custom objects are really cool, custom components. So that's the figurine. The custom PDF is also really good. That's how I had the codexes and stuff that I showed you guys earlier. And yes, that's the custom stuff. And then tools are also really good in the way that you've got note cards, counters, the tablet. Like the tablet is crazy. It's literally an iPad in the game, and then you can like Google stuff on that tablet, and you and your opponent can both see it. So say you were like, oh, what's the terrain rules again? Instead of one of you looking it up and then the other one going to, take their word for it, you can literally just go in here and go, 9th edition 40k, detachments. And then it just pops up everything. You can scroll. If you want to, you can right click on it and scale it up and make it nice and big. And then you just be like, alright, we've got a tablet over here. If we need to Google anything during the game, we can both just Google it on there. So that's really fucking handy. What other cool custom objects are there? Components, tools. So the counter, so the same as the CP counter. You can just summon as many freaking counters as you want. 100 of them, doesn't matter. And then each of those counters you can just rename something. So say you've got like Epidemus, and for every enemy unit that's killed, you get a tally. You can just rename it Epidemus's tally. And then when you hover over it, it says it's his tally, and it adds up. So yeah, the counters are very, very cool, very useful. Your bags, they're not so important. The infinite bag and the bag, the only difference is that the bag, you can put like 5 different things in it, whereas the infinite bag, you put one thing in it, and then you can draw infinite instances of that one thing. So say you wanted to go like that and be like, you know what, I'm just going to pop my Haldrakes, I might say I'll put my Defilers in there. Okay, it doesn't want to. There you go. Drag and drop a Defiler in there, and now you can summon as many fucking Defilers as you want. Although I just threw it away like a dickhead. Oh. Okay, it doesn't like the Defiler. It doesn't like the Defiler. Interesting to note that if you do accidentally throw something off the table, it just spawns on the edge like what this has here. So that's not that big of a deal. Yeah, the dice bags, they're good if you want to bring your own custom dice. Like some of the army save games that I showed you from earlier, like that Salamanders one we went into and the World Eaters one we went into, they'll have custom dice that you can bring in. And they work in here as well. You can drop them into the thing. You can't summon them like using these buttons to summon dice. It only summons the Tabletop Professional or Professional Tabletop. Professional Tabletop. It only summons their dice. But say you've got, say you're a Khorne army, you might bring 2 of those World Eaters dice and only use those 2 dice for your charges. You use all these dice for all your attacks and shit. When you're doing a charge, you grab your 2 special dice and roll them through that box. But yeah, I think that more or less covers it. There's music you can play. They've got an Ultramarines music in there, which is annoying when somebody turns it on. Instructions, simple. Modding, I don't even know what that does because it's all scripting and shit. There's the flip the table button. If you crack the shits at your opponent, you can flip the table, which literally never gets old. But important, knowing that your opponent can do that as well, you can actually rewind time. And you just click that button and it rewinds like a couple of seconds and brings you back to here, and then you pick your seat again, you close your menu. The tablet, every time you open a game, the tablet's going to ask permission so that you can't just put porn on there and subject your opponent to that. Custom figurine, it's going to ask for the thing again. You just get rid of all that. Yeah, that's the table flip button, and then there's the menu as well. So it's all pretty straightforward. It does take a little bit of getting used to, the movement and stuff. but it's pretty simple when you get familiar with it. I'll show you some of the other tables as well, because there's all of the different 9th edition missions. Each one has its own specific table. So like this one's your Vanguard Strike. So you can see they've measured out your Vanguard Strike deployment zones for you. They've placed your objective markers for you. And they've got all of the rules for the terrain. You just hover over it and it tells you what you need to know. And it's got your mission there. And you can see that when they've done this, they've set up the terrain so that it's appropriate for the deployment type and for the mission. So it's really, really balanced. It's not like one of those ones where you get to a table and you're like, oh wow, this table sucks if we get Hammer and Anvil. And then it happens to be round 4 and you happen to be playing the Hammer and Anvil mission and you're like, that's fucking shit. It's like every one of the tables has clearly had a lot of thought into it when deploying the terrain. Some of them I think are a little bit heavy. Like for example, if you've got this one and you've got, you know, Imperial Knights, like your Imperial Knight probably isn't even going to fit through those gaps. So your opponent could just hide everything in here and here and you're never going to charge him. So there's some things that I think maybe are a little bit over the top, but they're all really nice tables, and I think it's the pros vastly outweigh the cons. So you can see this one here. It's a snow table. All of the terrain has a base on it. And you can see they've done some really smart things where it's like these are obscuring, so even though they've got these big open windows in them, if you're behind it, you can't be seen through that window. So if I'm here trying to shoot somebody back in the corner of there, I can't get them. However, if I'm on the terrain, well then I'm no longer obscured by the terrain, in which case I would still be obscured if I was tucked away in the corner here, but if I was at the back here and they were like right there, then they can see me and therefore shoot me. So they've done some really creative stuff with that, and done some really smart things where they're like, okay, well let's make it so that the objectives aren't too well protected. Like they didn't just go, let's put a big line of sight blocker around this objective, you know. They've made it so that there's a good mix of going, well, do you want to be safe or do you want to be on the objective? What's the next one? This one here. Same as like this one here, they've gone, okay, cool. They've actually given us a little bit of terrain for our objectives, but none of it's really that good at obscuring you. You're going to be relatively vulnerable, exposed on the terrain. But you've also got these two big ruins in the centre here, so you can sort of lock line of sight quite well. Yeah, so that more or less sums it up. I'll touch on some other interesting stuff as well. If you go into the games, let's see if I can find maps, tools, and terrain. So this is one you get with that original download pack, and you go into maps, and this has got all your 8th edition stuff in it, because obviously it was built for 8th edition. There's all these different terrain layouts that you can apply to the map. But basically with this, there's a few things in here that might be worth stealing and bringing with your army in your 9th edition games. So this is your old classic 8th edition table. As soon as it loads up, yep, here we go. So on this one over here, you can open the table and you can set what table you want. And then once you've set what table you want, you can set terrain. You can say I want it to be a ruined base. And then it just summons in all the terrain for you. So but these are 6x4 boards, so not really that useful unless you decide you want to play a 6x4 game. Maybe all the tables at your local tournament establishment are 6x4s, so you want to practice on a 6x4, that's totally fine. But this has got so much shit that you might want to steal for your 9th edition games. So it's got little tokens like whether or not a unit's fallen back, if it's got marker lights on it, if they advanced. So it's not a bad idea to have those tokens available to you. And literally all you do is you'd be like, oh, I'm Tau, so I want marker lights for sure. And I want to be able to say that things have been debuffed because I've used something that debuffs and I want things advanced, and then all you literally do is you just right click on those, save object as tokens. And then basically when you get to your 9th edition game, you just go summon army and then summon tokens, and that'll summon in new tokens. There's a few other bits and pieces. So there's up here you've got all your different buffs. So you got your different Space Marine, not Space Marine, your different orders, Markerlight things, your advance +1. So if somebody gets +1 to charge, for example, you can put things on there. -1 to charge, that sort of shit. Then over here you've got wound tokens, which are really helpful. Basically you just click on the top there and it changes the number. So you summon one of those, you drag it and you chuck it next to the model that just got wounded. He started with 4 wounds, this is a Thunderfire cannon. You shot your las cannon, you wounded him, but you only rolled 1 for your damage, you took it down to 1. And that way it's really easy for your opponent at any stage to just hover over models and see how many wounds they have. The other function that people use often for wound counting is they literally just right click on the unit and change the name to have 1 less wound. That's another perfectly viable method. There's activation tokens. I'm yet to see anybody use these, but say you've got an army who's got MSU coming out the wazoo. You might go, okay, put an activation token next to each unit, and then as they shoot, you change it to red. And you go, okay, now this unit's going to shoot, and you change that to red. And then basically you know your opponent's not going to shoot this unit again because they've got activation tokens. So that's a useful feature, I guess, if you've got a lot of shit going on. It can be handy. The other function, the other funky thing on these is these rings. So you've got 2 that are available. You've got one of them is a 9 to 12 inch, so the inner ring is 9 inches and the outer ring is 12 inches. And then this one is 18 to 24. I'm a huge fan of this one here when somebody's deep striking. So basically if my opponent is trying to deep strike near my models, I just grab this and I hold it hovering above the model, and that way they know that if my models, just say this crater is my model and they want to deep strike near it, I just hold that on the edge of my model and they know that they can set up here. Although I went crooked. Yeah. It makes it so much easier just setting up your minis when it comes to deep striking. Not 100% sure what the 18 to 24 inch range one would be. I guess if your opponent's got 24 inch range guns, you could be like, I'm just going to put this over your model because I know you've got 24 inch range, and now I just know to stay outside of that outer ring. And then there's down here they've got all kinds of different dice bags. This one obviously is not made by the professional tabletop guys, so this dice tray's got a few extra features. Like you could go, I want to summon 25 blue, and then I want to summon 10 red, and then I want to summon 25 black, and then roll all that. Whereas theirs doesn't let you change the colours. They might update that in the future because it's only brand new, but yeah. It also has options for D3s, where you can just pop it in there and it rolls a 1, a 2 or a 3, whatever. Same with your D12s and stuff. But this little tool here is really cool. So I recommend possibly pinching this, because it basically allows you to have, there's army specific tokens, so and army specific psychic powers. So you've got all your different psychic powers in here. So say your chaos, I want to go Chaos Space Marines, confirm the deck, and then basically these are all your different psychic powers. And it gives you basically a rundown of what the psychic power is, how many warp charge it is, all kinds of things, and then basically you can go, okay, I'm going to use Diabolical Strength, I'm going to cast it, you roll your cast, and you go, okay, it's on this model here, and you can just place the card next to it. And that way your opponents can see who has what power. Really, really helpful. And then tokens are for all things that function essentially the same, but they don't necessarily have psychic powers, so to speak. So this is things like, let's use Necrons as an example. They've got tokens, and there's little things like Transdimensional Thunderbolt. Don't know what that is. Not a Necron player. So, obviously I'm not a Necron player, so fuck knows why I picked the Necron token deck. But yeah, it's got all the different stuff in it. So if you're a Necron player, you just go right click on that, save that object as my token bag, and this one you'd save the deck of cards as my where is it? Save object as my psychic cards. And then you can just summon, like I use the word summon, but you just go into object and save object and you bring it all in. Anyway, I think that more or less covers it. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. And I look forward to seeing you on a virtual tabletop someday soon. Thanks for tuning in.